Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Best Books Ever. I am Tyler, and today we are continuing The Name of the Wind, Patrick Rothfuss, chapters 24 through 46. So we're reaching the halfway point in the book. A lot of stuff has happened so far. A lot of stuff. And, last week was obviously the beginning, and so I feel like there was a lot of setup, right? You have to introduce the characters, the world. We're finally getting into like what the story actually is, right? So now with this one, we see a lot of those things. A lot of, Kvothe is able to tell a lot more interesting parts of his life, and seemingly the parts that, really lay the foundation. We saw, the beginning of this, we have him going to Tarbine and all that, and that obviously, kind of hardens him a little bit. And then before that, last week we had the whole, Chandrian business, which we do seemingly confirm that those were Chandrian. I think that was a big question I had at the end of the last episode, or end of the last, end of last week, where I was like, did we actually, do we know those are Chandrian? Like, is that confirmed? They didn't refer to themselves as anything. Um, but I guess it's supposed to be. I don't know. But anyway, um, very cool stuff here because now we actually see him with like other people, like real people, like in a society, and not and towards the beginning of this, and obviously last week with him alone in the forest, where he's kind of alone and everything is very internal for him, which I like. I like that we've kind of moved away from that. So lots of stuff. We're obviously going to start at the end where we just get completely bombarded by just things that happen to him. So at the very end, we do see that he's trying to get Elodin, right, to teach him because he's like the namer, you know. He even says this to Elodin too, where he's like, I first started wanting to be an arcanist because I saw somebody call the name of the wind. Again, we've name of the book in the book, and so he's like the master namer. Got to get under this guy. Lots of other areas of expertise. He even said before where he was like, he was asked like, oh, what are you going to study? And he was like, well, everything. And he was like, oh, that's such a good idea. But, clearly he just wants knowledge. The main thing seemingly about the Chandrian, but his Kvothe brain will not allow him to like skip out on anything. So going back here, we have him with Elodin the Namer. Elodin, very eccentric, to say the least. Love the Elodin character in this. Because he is so different, right? And like you can sort of see the genius. He hasn't really displayed it yet, I don't think, but you can see the remnants of who people saw him as when he was the chancellor, apparently. And now he's just kind of like, because we see this towards the middle of this section, which we'll get to in a second, but where he's taking his test and everyone's asked their questions or whatever, and then the chancellor's going to move on, and then Elodin kind of interrupts and is like, hey, I want to ask some questions too. And they're all sort of like thrown off by this, because what I gleaned from that is that Elodin normally doesn't ask questions, probably almost never asks questions in the like in the entrance exams and the admissions, partly because I'm sure he doesn't care, right? And then partly because the other masters let him because of who he is and what he is and kind of their like attitude towards him. Where I feel like they all respect him. This is what I would like to think. We haven't really seen them talk about their own opinions of him. But I would like to think that they respect him. They're just like kind of put off by him because he's such an odd character. But anyway, going back to Elodin, so yeah, we see him try to get, try to like get his tutelage, right? Goes through all sorts of stuff. So we see him. Let's see. We see him go down. We do see university asylum, which I feel like he's trying to be like, this is why I don't normally take students, is because normally this arcanist stuff can break your mind. And we've seen that too. We talked about this last time where, um, I don't know if I actually said this. No, I did. Um, last time I was mentioning how arcanists, how Patrick Rothfuss has really created a very interesting magic system where, we obviously learn more about it in this part as well, but how it's sort of different. A lot of it is based internally and in the mind. We see that with a lot of the tests, a lot of the lessons that Ben gives Quoth, where a lot of it is just like how to think about things. One of the very first things was him trying to, the power of belief and him trying to make Quoth believe something that inherently is false, right? Like trying to believe that if I drop this stone from my hand, it's not going to fall. And not just like you being like, okay, yeah, it's not going to fall. No, you truly have to rewire your brain to believe that it is not going to fall. You have to do this. Not an easy thing to do, to just throw away something that every cell in your body is saying is the truth. We see that a lot too, like him like breaking apart his mind to help with the sympathy. We see like the heart of stone, all this stuff, right? So it would make sense that this arcanist business would kind of break your mind. So he does that. He also shows him down to the the room where he was kept for a while. A few interesting things about this room that I want to point out. One, copper seems to be a through line. Stepping back a little bit, there is a very interesting door in the stacks that is flush with the wall, right? Obviously very important, right? Definitely hides something or leads somewhere. Obviously we don't know. But that's made of copper. And then we look at the door to this place, very similarly made of copper. We go down the windowsill, the trimming on the window, made of copper. Elodin does an amazing thing where he knows the name for like breaking the wall, or he thinks he does, and then he realizes like they somehow changed it or something. But that in itself, we just pull that out for a second. That's crazy, right? Because this whole time, like we said, Elodin, Kvothe first was mesmerized by this magic stuff when he saw someone control the wind, right? And he's wanting to get there and possibly further, right? For years, right? When did he first start? When he's like 12 or something? Or maybe younger than that, because it was his 12th birthday when he died, or when his family died, so maybe 11 or so. And now we fast forward to here, and he just sees someone do it after years of hanging on to that moment, that memory. And Quoth has a very good memory, we know this. All these years later, he finally gets to see someone do something similar again. And it is as fantastical as he remembers it, right? So that's awesome, and it also kind of legitimizes Elodin as well. Where up until this point, it's like, is he all there? Because that's another thing about this too, where we think that maybe a lot of these names maybe were wiped from his memory. Maybe just a lot of his abilities he doesn't remember. He doesn't have the mental fortitude to do them anymore. Since he apparently went crazy, that one time. That's why he's kind of not all there, I guess. Or that's what everyone thinks. Maybe it's the opposite, and his mind has been opened, and he is more sane than he has ever been. I guess we'll see, or we won't. I don't know. But on top of that, coming back to the copper through line, when he broke apart the wall, in the wall there's like a bunch of copper mesh, which I imagined as like rebar when they put like the metal poles inside of like concrete or whatever, or cement. It kind of helps it like keep its form, right? And also makes it stronger, like it reinforces it and all that. Which is why he had a very funny comment where he was like, "Oh, last time it was it was much more exciting. Trust me, because last time the copper stuff probably wasn't there. So when he did the name of the name of the wall, probably like burst out a little bit. Whereas this time, like I said, coppers presumably reinforces it a little bit, so it kind of just falls, but again, copper. So, like y'all know, I've read this before. I do not remember the significance of copper, or even if there is one. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe it's just they like copper. you know, Arcanists, they just have a fondness for the metal of copper. Or maybe there's some story back in the day where copper was used and now it's just like ceremonious, right? But it is interesting that the doors were made of copper, right? A way that you can get in and out of a place is presumably a very secret place. The lining to the windows were copper, another way that you can get in and out of a location. And lined in the walls were copper. Given that Elodin, the last time he was able to escape from a room that was, everyone believes is inescapable, even to arcanists, the way he was able to escape was blowing apart the wall. So what do? Put copper mesh in the wall. For some reason, that does something, right? It would have to, you would think. So again, these dots have to be connected somehow. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if it like dampens magic or something. I don't know. But this does all end with Elodin telling Kvothe to learn from him. He has to jump off a roof. Kvothe foolishly takes him seriously, jumps off the roof, and Elodin is like, "You're an idiot. I'm not teaching someone who's dumb enough to jump off a roof." Again, this is a little bit of Cole's hubris, I think, and a lot of his cleverness coming back to bite him, because this whole time, he had a very specific perception of Elodin, like him being kind of weird, but kind of mysterious, but also very powerful, very knowledgeable. So he kept, he kept connecting that to these stories of Taborlin the Great, who also knew the names of things. So he kept making these connections to like bigging up this moment and thinking that this was all a test. And so he's like, Elodin clearly was, that's why he showed me to the asylum to kind of test me to see if I have the mental, the like emotional steelness to handle whatever, whatever comes of this teaching. That's why he showed me the room to I was able to notice the whatever in the air in the room. It was all tests, right? Turns out me personally reading this, and I think the reader in general is supposed to believe this, not a test. Elodin is just strange. A couple things he did do, I believe, to kind of warn him and to kind of ward him off, and even possibly see how serious he is. But I definitely don't think jumping off the roof was a test. And even if it was, jumping off of it, I don't think was the answer. I don't think that was the answer. But, because like, Elodin probably just thought of the craziest thing in the moment. If they weren't on the roof, he would have said something, crazy as well for Kvothe to do. But yeah, so that's Elodin. I'm sure we'll see more of him. He is one of the masters, and even the very, very end of this chapter, Kvothe does say that he is not dissuaded. He does say that he's going to put his main focus in artificing with Master Kilvin, but Elodin is still on his mind, because at the end of the day, like I said, the seed that was planted for him to want to even get to where he is now was the moment with Abinthy and the Name of the Wind. And Cole's mind, his curiosity mind, will not allow him to just give this up, and he won't, right? Because it would eat him alive. The same way I imagine not being in the archives is going to eat him alive, and that is a segue. So we do have our first real enemy of the book. Obviously, I say that, and the Chandrian are very real, right? Which we'll get to later. Chandrian enemy, but they're kind of and Kvothe even talked about this, right? In one of the interludes, I think the last interlude, which was like 45 or 44, one of those chapters. He talks about this, right, where he's like, because like Bast is like, why didn't you go back for Skarpi, and Kvothe kind of turns this into, his explanation was like, this is not a story, which is funny because it is just like he's telling it as a story, and then also Patrick Rothfuss is the author of the story that Kvothe is in. So many layers. But he's like, this isn't a story. This was my life. And so, while yes, it would have been very cool to go rescue Skarpi, right? And then he'd be taking it a few steps further and being like, it'd be great for me to be at the university for a few years and become a crazy powerful arcanist. I learn the names of all these powerful things, and I track down the Chandrian and I kill him for revenge, right? But it's not that easy, to say the least. And also, I have very real obstacles in front of me. And he lists them. He's like, my poverty, right? My low birth, all these things. His just lack of knowledge, right? He doesn't even know where the Chandrian are. He impossible, right? And Ambrose is one of those very real obstacles. Fortunately for him, we learn about him. He's a very, very powerful family. He loves holding a grudge, loves it. Ambrose very quickly has become the least favorite character of mine in this whole thing. I'm trying to go back and think of someone who I hate more. I mean, Pike kind of sucked, but even then, you kind of look at Pike and you're like, he was doing what he had to do. I'm not that mad at him. It wasn't like he was singling out Kvothe in particular. They just, a new kid got stuff that we want. That's just how Tarbean rolls, A lot of stuff with Ambrose in this one. We get towards the end, and let's see. We get towards the end in that fateful encounter, right, where he does save Fila from Ambrose, right? Fila obviously very, very uncomfortable in the embrace. Ambrose tries to justify it, and Kvothe is just like, I don't think so. I don't think this is how men are supposed to act towards women. And Fela, it's probably Fela. I'm gonna say Fela. Visibly relieved of what Kvothe did because she couldn't just outwardly reject Ambrose and his actions, because again, we've learned of how powerful Ambrose is. Not only how powerful he is, but that he is willing to go through with exacting his revenge. He made certain people disappear. He basically bought the land out from under people. Like that's insane. So it's like I just kind of have to sit here and so we like that. Hopefully we see more interaction between Fela and Kvothe, because the second one, I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but it would be cool. We have the other friend group, right, with Simmons, Willem, Malay, and Savoy. So, it'd be cool if Fela was in there too. Always was glad to see, in any story, more characters get added to the friend group. So that'd be cool. And also apparently, women arcanists, rare. I think Kvothe says like 10 to 1. It's like 10 men to 1 woman at the university. I wonder why that is. I wonder if it's just like, are women like looked down on when it comes to arcane? I mean, I could definitely see that, right? Like that's history repeating itself since the beginning of time, right? Where like women always are allowed, quote unquote, to do things after men. So maybe it's as simple as that. But anyways, we have the thing, and then we, this all leads to Lauren banning Kvothe from the archives. Let me put my book down for a second, because we just gotta talk about this. This is terrible. Um, we have the lead up where Ambrose tricks Kvothe, right? There's so many things that had to fall into place for this to happen. And it all, I mean, I won't say it all starts, I might guess it all starts with Kvothe's birth, you know? But I mean, it all starts with Kvothe embarrassing Ambrose in front of Phala, which he makes great points, you know, where he's like, oh, you don't understand what a man and woman do. And Kvothe is like, in the publicity of the main entrance to the archives, like, what are you talking about? And he says like, oh, why don't you go to an alleyway or something? It's like, okay. But then him tricking him and him being like, okay, first off, there's a stack fee. He takes a talent from him. Terrible stuff. Bad stuff for Kvothe. We learn that's not real. There's no such thing as a stack fee. And then he tries to rent him out a sympathy lamp. Just pause there. There's no such thing as renting out a sympathy lamp. You just sign them out. That's all it is. A talent and a half. Crazy that renting a sympathy, like, Kvothe, come on, you have to be smarter than this. Renting a sympathy lamp for a talent and a half, you're assuming per time you go in here. That's more than the stack fee to just get into the stacks. Come on, Kvothe. Crazy stuff. And then him giving him a candle for a halfpenny, which I assume is halfpenny. I don't know. And then for free, right? Which is like, a candle, really? I think in that moment it would be. I still think it would be not impossible to believe, right? I guess Arcanists are supposed to be a lot smarter and a lot more logical about things, but in that moment I'd be like, okay, a candle, sure. It's weird that there's another option. You know, I mean, sympathy lamps are better than a candle, but it's weird that it's weird that you wouldn't propose both options. You know, like if this was real, and both lamps and candles were you know, you could bring either one. But we'd be like, all right, lamp, talent and a half, and they'd be like, oh, there's also a candle. So again, Kvothe not in his right mind, because we learn that, or we don't learn, but we see that he takes the null root, and the side effect of that makes your body and mind a little tired, a little, a little dreamy, right? So he's not all the way there. He's not the Kvothe that we know. So he accepts it and all that stuff, and they see him, and then Lauren comes out. The ever stoic and emotionless Lauren comes out, yells at him. I think like takes away. I forget what he does to Ambrose. He like, I don't know. He just reprimands him or whatever. Because Ambrose lies obviously, and he bans Kvothe from the archive. So this very unfortunate sequence of events that wouldn't have ever happened if Kvothe never took the null route. But then again, did he have to take the null route? He didn't, right? So if we just touch on this for a second, I want to go in more detail after we get through the whole archive thing. But he didn't really have to. He did it for an image, and he explains this to Arwyl, which again we'll get into in a moment. But it all really stems down to Kvothe and what he is trying to do. Not only the kind of image he's trying to have, but like how he feels he has to survive, and to get to his goal, which again, I guess you can say his main goal is to get revenge on the Chandrian. But him just learning and him just surviving again. Tarbean did a number on him, both in good ways and bad ways. So him getting here, he's like, this is what I have to do. Again, we'll get in a little more detail. Banning from the archives, though, terrible stuff, because that is not suspension. He's banned. Like, he's done. He can never come back in the archives. Bad stuff, because archives, on a surface level, seemingly, if any place was going to have the answer to more information on the Chandrian, it was going to be the archives, right? So that kind of comes to a grinding halt. And then also, like, schoolwork, like, I'm sure there's a lot of books in there that can happen, that can help him with his schoolwork. I mean, we saw it in the very first day, right, where Hem was upset and upset the tardiness of people and assigned them work, and they had to go to the archives and get the book and do the research to write the paper. If that happens with Quoth, I don't really know what's going to happen to him. And I was going to get books. I'm sure there's bookstores, right? Probably, but I don't know. And now he's also on Lauren's bad side. Which I've seen this before. If you have read along with the other couple series I've done, certain characters in these books so far have a tendency to make enemies of probably the worst people. you know. So we see it right here, right, where he already has an enemy in Hem, which people already don't find him, too lovable as a master, right? As one of the, how many there? There's 9 masters, I think. But he's like actively against him now, and now we got Lauren against him. The one other dude, I forget his name, who always sides with him apparently, probably not his good side either. Elodin at this point, if we're going all the way to the end of our little section here for this week, not sure where Elodin lies on that either. So, not very good for Kvothe. So we'll see what happens there, and then let's see. Yeah, I guess we'll just burn through some more highlights of his university time. So like I said, we had the admissions process and all that. He does get what he wishes, or what he requests of them, where he's like, you can let me in and give me a very high tuition, but I'm probably not gonna be able to pay it, right? And you're not gonna get out of me what you could. And you're kind of like bigging himself up and being like, I'm great, and I'm gonna be even greater. And so if you give me a high admission or a high tuition, you're just gonna snub that out. Like I'm not gonna be able to pay, and I'm gonna have to leave. You can give me a very small tuition, and I'll work, and I'll probably be able to pay it next term, right? And but I'll still be very preoccupied from my studies with my work and other ways I'm trying to make money, and you'll keep me here, but you're not going to get the full potential. Or third option, you can pay me 3 talents. I won't have to worry about food, shelter, clothing, supplies, anything like that, and I'll be able to put my full brain power into my studies, and I'll be the greatest student the university has ever seen, basically. Very arrogant, but they seem to enjoy that, right? He's probably the first person in years to come and say something like that. Obviously, I'm sure they've had very arrogant people. We know the university has a lot of rich, powerful sons and daughters that attend here, and they don't really come here for any real reason. They just stay for like a term or two and then leave. So they probably said somewhat similar things maybe. But Quo saying it, powerful. So that was crazy. And also that in particular, like paying him to go to school here, that is never happens, ever. Insane. Let's see, some more university stuff. Before he's banned from the archives, Lauren does see a little bit of what Kvothe is trying to study, and he pulls him aside into a private room and tells him a little bit about the Emir. But then this kind of leads its way into its own lesson with him, saying that you should try to avoid the appearance of boyish fantasies. Again, he's not trying to insult Kvothe. He said, he's like, I'm not saying that's what this is, what you're doing. I'm saying that it could appear that way. And I already imagine that you're going to have a tough enough time, being as young as you are, implying that, he's not from like a powerful or rich family, all this stuff, right? Where it's like, you probably have enough on your plate. You don't want this extra, um, this extra source of criticism from your peers or even your teachers, your masters, all that stuff. So I would recommend avoiding it, which is good advice. I think I would appreciate that from Lauren. I think that the tough thing for Kvothe though is this is what he wants to do. He needs to learn more about the Chandrian in particular, and um, tangentially he needs to know more about like the Emir, linear, all that stuff. But it's tough because we even had the conversation with him and his friends, specifically Monet, and when he mentioned the Chandrian to them, like he sort of laughs it off, right? Where he looks at that as just like fairy tales, you know. That's how pretty much everyone else sees it. So tough stuff there. We have one of the greatest moments of these 23 chapters where Kvothe completely embarrasses Hem in front of his class because Hem sees Kvothe as very arrogant and very, very sure of himself, right? And so he's like, okay, cool, teach, right? And this all boils down to him, Kvothe successfully teaching the class, right? He teaches the three whatever about sympathy that, seemingly Hem was going to teach that day. And he also embarrasses Hem, right? He connects himself to a clay thing and the lamp with the fire or whatever, and burns his foot, right? Pretty badly. Now, on one hand, you'll love to see it, right? Because Kvothe is our main character. We know all the things Kvothe has been through. Not only his hardships, but also what he's done to learn what he's had. I mean, like we know that he's trained with Abinthy. We know that he's learned all the things from Abinthy way quicker than anyone actually should. So we know Kvothe's skills and the knowledge that he possesses. And we know that Hem, probably the least liked master. Again, Elodin is sort of on the outside of things. But in terms of like actively dislike, Hem probably number one. I don't think anyone would really disagree with that. So all these things culminate into the one hand, which is satisfaction, a very satisfying moment. On the other hand, though, I think we should pull ourselves outside of the book for a second and just really look at this from Hem's perspective. This kid comes into admissions, right? Answers pretty much every question flawlessly. Even the one that I give him to, that I give other students to actively trick them, he answers it, right? He corrects me and answers the question the way he should have. He also gets Elodin, the master, who, again, seemingly, most likely, never speaks during admissions, right? He probably doesn't care, right? Again, Elodin is on that sort of wavelength. Doesn't care about the admissions process. Then he gets in, right? He gets admitted into the university, and we pay him money. We are paying him money to go to school at the university. Never happens, right? Probably has never happened before. Then he arrives at my class first day. I master him, so I'm sure I notice all these things, right? I notice that he's not taking notes of any kind. He probably seems very bored, right? Because I'm sure Kvothe is not hiding that very well in his face. Seems very bored because he knows all this stuff. Comes up to me at the first day of class, comes up to me and says, I already know all of this. I'm sure this is good work for the other students, but I know all of this, right? Basically asking him to like teach stuff that he doesn't know yet, or to move on to like the more advanced, basics of sympathy 2 instead of 1, which he's taking right now. All this stuff, all of it, and now he just got embarrassed he got severely embarrassed by this student. So it's like all of this stuff kind of culminates to the other hand, which is I don't think him really did anything wrong. I think that he's definitely just dropped something. He's definitely more rude than any other characters, and so I'm not gonna say that he's the perfect human when it comes to social skills, right? Because he's not. Definitely rude. He definitely said some rude things to especially that girl that came in late. Oh my gosh, that was awful. You know, I would have hated to be her. I probably would have left the class. you know, so very rude. Not a great, likable personality. But if we're just taking the actions, the information that he's received about this young boy, I don't think he did anything wrong. I think he has every right to try to embarrass him in front of class to kind of humble him. Because again, I just talked about this with the admissions process where it's like, I'm sure every term, there's probably at least a handful of students that are similar to Quoth, that think they know everything, that, we're learning from other people for months, maybe, a couple years at this point, because their parents were able to afford like, some sort of like arcanist teacher or something. So like, you know, it's the same thing with Ambrose, which, he was talking to Quoth the first day, right? Where he was like, oh, let me guess, you were able to do these things. You're always more clever than the people in your village, so it's like people like this come through all the time. So I think it was right of him to try to humble Quoth, and be like, listen, you have things to learn. Everyone has things to learn. Even if you think you know the basics, you might not. You might not have a rock solid understanding of everything that you think you do. So I think that aspect of this was warranted. I think his personality sucks still. And I think him going to the other masters and being like, this is what happened, and him clearly omitting key details is very petty. So like that, so like again, there are two sides to this, and I think there is stuff on the good side in which um, he had every right to do, and there's also stuff on the bad side. It's like, come on, him, you are an adult, but neither here nor there. And I guess that's a very good segue into the trial, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, we do have a trial, right? He goes in and they were going to give him like 20 lashes and also expulsion from the school. But Kvothe is able to go into the heart of stone, relax a little bit, and say, hey, hold on, I had permission to do this. And he goes off, we read it, I don't need to say everything, but I do like that, though. Again, this is a main part to Quothe's character. We've seen it a million times. I'm sure we'll see it a million more, which is like Kvothe remembers things. His memory is possibly his greatest gift. And so the amalgamation of everything he's gone through so far in his life helps him often. And so this right here, like having the memory to bring back these details, being so good at learning the heart of stone to not get emotional and just lash out or something, having the Edma Ruh background to be able to keep that straight face and be able to deliver information in a clear and concise and understandable way. I think it's all important, I truly do. I think it's all very important. And so, in the end, he gets a few lashes, which is very funny because he gets a few lashes, but then he also is able to weasel his way into proving that he has mastered the basics of sympathy. Because it's like, I mean, hasn't he? He kind of has, right? So that was really cool. Where, I love the little interaction between him and Simmons afterwards, where he was like, I'm getting 3 lashes, and also I've been accepted into the Arcanum. and Simmons is like, I'm sorry, congratulations. He's like, I don't really know how to feel about this. Lashes, one of the worst things that can happen to you at the university, if not the worst thing. But also getting into the Arcanum on your second day. Impressive. And then we get to the actual punishment time, and we talk about how he took the null route. He did it to numb the pain, but also it thins the veins or something, so it prevents you from bleeding. That was all a great moment. That was really, I think that was the inception, if that's the right word, conception of Kvothe. That was really because before that, I mean, before that we got obviously the crazy admissions thing, but that no one's ever gonna that's never gonna come out unless he says something to people like, oh, they paid me first term, which I'm sure at some point he probably let loose, I'm sure they were in some tavern or something, and he was like, hey, I never told you this, but or maybe he let it slip or something, but again, that's whatever. Even the story of him and him, like that whole moment is like, there are things like that, but I think this is the start of Kvothe, right? Even I think Bast was the one. No, maybe it doesn't matter. Bastard Chronicler asked him, was like, "Is that where your name Kvothe the Bloodless came from?" And he was like, maybe I don't know." Yeah, that's the beginning. He went there, stood tall, took off his shirt, which is crazy because the shirt kind of, apparently, softens the blow a little bit. Takes off the shirt because in his mind he's like, I'm not ruining a shirt. Like I only have 2 shirts. Stands there, doesn't get chained. He's like, you are not shackling me to this. If I fall and pass out or whatever, do what you must. But I'm not doing that. Takes 3 lashes, doesn't cry out, doesn't cry, doesn't bleed, stands up, also doesn't black out or anything, stands up, takes the shirt and his robe, walks away, doesn't say anything. That is absolutely insane. So that right there is like, yo, this Kvothe guy, we'll have to keep an eye on him. And then I love afterwards him explaining this to Master Arwell at the Medica. And I don't know, it's just perfect because Arwell doesn't realize it at first with the null root stuff, and then he does, and he's like, explain it to me, and he's like, I get it. Again, Kvothe doing this for the image, him doing it again. I think it has a lot to do with his Tarbean experience, where it's like, I need to show people that I am strong and I am not afraid, and I will not buckle, right? And he did, specifically aimed at him, but also everyone else too, because rumors can spread, negative rumors can spread. So I think doing that in one of the most public of fashions helps his image and his credibility, and also him getting into the Arcanum so early. I think that helps as well. So yeah, so that's pretty much all the big stuff. I think I just have a few smaller things that are worth mentioning, maybe worth remembering. I don't know. They're just things that I liked. So one thing, Kvothe and Denna, Kvothe meets the girl named Denna. The most beautiful thing he's ever seen. Not to objectify her as calling her a thing, obviously. But yeah, I love the moment. I personally love that moment or moments, because if you have read the other series I've done so far in this podcast, I love the romance aspects of these stories and these interactions. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to spoil anything for any previous series that I've done. If you haven't read those yet, but you should. I've done the Mistborn series, and I've done Percy Jackson. Very good. Just go check those out if you haven't. But I love the romance aspects in those books, and so there's a little bit of that here. Obviously, they're not a couple or anything. This does unfortunately end with Kvothe realizing that there's a 99% chance he is never going to see this woman again. And the only reason I say 99 out of 100 is because anything could happen. Anything could happen, I guess. That's just a rule of thumb for life in general, right? You can't ever completely rule out any possibility, but pretty soon, putting that aside, 100% chance he's never going to see this girl again, because she's going to, I think, like, Talon or something. I forget the name was called, but it was some city that's like hundreds of miles away from where he's going. And also, like, their paths just don't cross. Do you think Den is an interesting character, though, for the short time? And we will talk about a couple other interesting characters as well that, that's mainly why I have a few erroneous points to get through, because, I want to highlight these interesting characters that I'll probably never see again. She had something very similar to how you feel Kvothe might or should act, right? Where she was very just like, go with the wind. And not because the book's called The Name of the Wind, but she's very just like, go with the flow sort of thing. Like, she's like, I don't know where I'm going. She asked Kvothe, do you know where I'm going? And he's like, I don't know. I'm not sure. And she's like, it'd be really cool if you knew, because I don't know. And then Kvothe's like, oh, I'm going to university or whatever. And she's like, must be nice to know where you're going, And, from all that, I just see that as like, she has no plan for her life, or she just doesn't really know what she wants to do with her life. She's kind of like traveled from here to there, kind of surviving up until this point. But she has no real direction, which, like I said, in a sense, kind of similar to how you feel Kvothe should be, because Kvothe is Edma Ra. They're part of a troop. They never stay in one place for more than, a couple days, few days. So the fact that he has a destination he wants to stay at for a while is strange, Well, I think at that point, actually, yeah. I'm done. This was after Tarpine. For some reason, I thought he met Denna before Tarpine. That doesn't make any sense. But yeah, we're good. We're good. And then obviously the more like lovey-dovey aspects or just close aspects where they're talking all the time. They don't talk about each other's past. They talk about the now, their thoughts, the future, all that stuff. They seemingly get pretty close at like the pond or the lake or something. It's very funny to see him get jealous of the other dude who seemingly wasn't trying to like cut Kvothe out. He was just living his life, and Kvothe was getting jealous because, why wouldn't you? But yeah, I guess I just wanted to boil that down of like, that was cool. Again, I always gravitate towards the, any sort of romance in these stories, but then it was an interesting character. I think her, again, not having any direction, and also, obviously think it helped that Kvothe was head over heels for her, but like, she was kind of able to trip him up once or twice, which again, we look at Kvothe as like, he's like 10 levels above everyone. So it's like, you're not going to get the better of him unless he's off of null root and he can't think straight, right? But yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to point that out. Another interesting character. What the heck was his name? Tarpus, right? Or Tarpin? Trappus, my boy Trappus. So I just wrote down a line of his, because Kvothe, he decided he was going to the university. He was saying goodbye to the only person that the closest thing he's had to family for the 3 years he was in Tarpine, Trappus, right? So he went down to say goodbye to him. Very emotional, and there was a line that got me. It got me. I didn't cry, but I did choke up a little bit when I was reading this, because it was like, you really do realize that this is the only, like, this is his, like, uncle almost, right? And Trappist says a line when I think they like hug or something, and Trappist says a line where he says, um, what does he say? I'm always glad to see one of you get away. And like that to me perfectly encapsulates who Trappist is. He helps he helps the people that can't help themselves, that no one else wants to help. Does that out of the goodness of his heart. Um, Gives all of his time and money. Obviously he has to survive himself, but like he gives people food, gives people shelter. I loved one of the things Kvothe said, or I guess he thought, in the last part, and I think I mentioned this, but he was like, even when Trappist, when there's a day or whatever, the Trappist doesn't have anything to give, anything physical to give, it's still nice to go down there and just be with someone that looks at you like a person. And that could, many times is, in this environment, it's probably all they need, I mean, they need more, they need food and water and stuff like that, but like some days, sometimes all you need is just someone to pay attention to you, and someone to treat you like a person. Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be family, it doesn't have to go that far, but like someone to be there for you, you know. Um, but yeah, so I love it. And I love, what did he say again? I'm always glad to see one of you get away. It's like he knows what this is. He knows what Tarbean is. He knows what all these children's situations are. And so to see someone that's actually able to leave, that has the means to leave, or at least just the heart or the courage to get out of here and try to have a better life, um, to see him so genuinely feel that way is like, it's good, man. It's just good. I don't know how else to explain it. But yeah. Again, some still a couple more smaller things. When Kvothe does go into the tavern, I guess I didn't really plan on it, but there's the whole like Skarpi situation where he tells the story and stuff like that, which I do have another bullet point that'll link into that. But he does look at the tavern and kind of the atmosphere and all this stuff, and he does make a note of how nice it would be to own a tavern like this, which is funny because he does currently. The Waystone Inn, he does own a tavern like this one. Not as full, Waystone Inn doesn't get a lot of people, a lot of customers, but it is nice that might be probably the start of that idea for him, and now he does it, so that's cool. And I guess my last two bullet points kind of meld together, but talking about Skarpi, storyteller, all this stuff. He tells the story of Lanier, all this stuff, right? Very, very interesting story, but the takeaways from it for Kvothe is that the Chandrian are real, Haliax is real, as well as there are some possible Chandrian enemies, Emir, Singers, Sith, etc. So him having confirmation they're real, because again, we hear those names and wait, that was Haliax. They called that dude Haliax, the one dude that was in the crew that killed my family. That was, so I guess that is sort of confirmation that those were Chandrian, or at least from close perspective. Again, they didn't refer that. My problem with this is that they didn't refer to themselves as Chandrian, and we also don't know what Chandrian look like. So to me, those were just like normal looking people. But I guess they're the Chandrian. We're just going to call them Chandrian because that's what they are, according to Kvothe, who's telling the story. Chandrian are real. That's who they were. Took out my family. That one dude was Haliax. He's real. He's been alive for a while, or at least he's reborn or whatever. And also, we learned about the possible enemies, Emir, Singer, Sith. I don't know if that's going to help Kvothe at all. Again, for a second, he's like, well, if I can get with one of the enemy crews, then maybe, but it's like, do these people even still exist? Would they be willing to help him? What would he be able to give? You know what I mean? Like, why would they even accept him if he did find a bunch of singers or something? I don't even know what singers are. I'm assuming they're not people who sing songs, Take a wild guess there. But yeah, I do like from this, he seemingly has confirmation. Again, it is just a story. This could all be false. Those people could not be Chandrian, could not be Haliax, right? At this point, we don't know. But we are going to trust Kvothe because he's telling the story. Um, and this is what kind of drives him to go to the university, learn more, all this stuff. But it is nice, again, from at least Kvothe's perspective. He now has a direction, unlike Denna. But yeah, I guess that's it. A lot of stuff this time. I think I don't know if I mentioned this at all, but in my mind at least, I was thinking that there's definitely, these books are definitely the most dense books I've read so far. Only the third series I've covered, so it's not like a large pool, but definitely the most dense. So let me know what your favorite parts were of this. Anything I missed, I should have mentioned. Any predictions for next time? We are going to cover chapters 47 through 69. So the quarter three of this book. Any predictions from me? Let's see what's next. We do have Kvothe mentioning that he does want to take up artificing. I'm just gonna call it artificing. It might be artificing, because it is the fishery. I've always read that in my mind as a soft C, not a sh sound. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. He's gonna take up artificing from Kilvin, so that's cool. Kilvin, I think the coolest master so far. Him and the Chancellor Exodal, I think is his name. Kilvin definitely the coolest though, I think. So hopefully that'll be fun to see him. I'm sure we'll see a little bit of that. Not sure exactly he hasn't said what Cole's going to do there. We have the lamps and stuff. He did say to kind of think about the whole ever burning lamp thing. So maybe Kvothe will be clever enough to solve that mystery. Other than that, I'd love to see Kvothe get his revenge on Ambrose. I'm not sure how, but I'm sure he won't let that go. I would like to see him in Elodin interact a little more. Maybe to get some sort of tutelage from Elodin, even if he's not a full student, some here or there. I did say I wanted to see more of him and Phala. Again, talked about the whole gravitation towards romance, but also, like I said, I'm a sucker for a friend group. We've had that in the other two series I've covered, so you can kind of tell that trend. Anything else that we could have been introduced to? Oh yeah, I guess the other thing is the archives. Is he going to be able to convince Lauren to bring him back? I mean, like I said, banishment almost that hasn't happened in a long time. I think Monet was like a dozen years or something, over 10 years seemingly, since someone's been banished. So hopefully he's able to convince him to get back somehow. Maybe, I don't know. Because if not, it's going to be tough for his personal mission, but also his studies, right? It's going to be very hard for him, I imagine. But I guess that's it. Yeah, it's really all the little things that I've kind of ended on this part. So, yeah, that's it. So until next time, read the chapters, and that's it. Keep in mind about copper, though. Maybe it's nothing, maybe it's something.